talking about my favourite topic, RAWKS. RAWKS stands for Rotary Australia World Community Service, and it is basically the overseas aid arm of Rotary. Rotary's RAWKS started under the auspices of FAME 50 years ago. Overseas project was they left Australia on the 1st of June, so we're celebrating 50 years. It started under the name of FAME, which is 4th Avenue in Motion, which the 4th Avenue being international service. And since then it's expanded to cover a number of other areas, and so it comes under the name Rotary Australia World Community Service and is known as RAWKS. RAWKS itself is a wholly owned company owned by Rotary. There are 5 regions in Australia, and this area we are in the eastern region, which comprises basically the 7 districts. It was 7 districts, now 6 districts of New South Wales. It's now 6 districts since the 3 Sydney districts have combined to form 2. In eastern region we meet quarterly, rotating around the districts. So we have a district meeting where we discuss business of RAWKS. On the Saturday afternoon we have a session where a number of project leaders discuss their projects, and then on Saturday evening we have a dinner and a guest speaker. The last meeting was in fact hosted by our district in Mittagong. It was hosted by the Berrimah District Club, and then on the Sunday morning we conduct our general business. As mentioned, the RAWKS was started 50 years ago by a district governor from the Rotary Club of Inverell. He was aware of or became aware of the devastation in Indonesia following the Japanese occupation, and on the 1st of June took a team up to Indonesia to work on helping the Indonesians. The RAWKS programs basically fall under 3 areas. One is equipment, which we know as donations in kind. The other area is volunteers, which started as FAME and now is known as project volunteers, and then there's funding. Under equipment, known as donation in kind, we're always looking for equipment that is perfectly accessible, but has been superseded in Australia. So the main areas we're looking at is education equipment, and the other area is hospital and medical equipment. We're looking for school desks or school equipment from schools, and similarly hospital equipment, hospital beds, and in fact this week I picked up a whole load of crutches from Calvary Hospital that they no longer want. I'll be taking those up to donations in kind warehouse this weekend. Eastern region has a warehouse in Minchinbury, which is just outside Penrith, where they store equipment and use for packing containers. They sent something like 20 containers overseas last year. And the way it operates is we encourage clubs to look out for equipment that's no longer required, and then get it up to the warehouse. I go up there fairly regularly, so I'm more than happy to take equipment up from Canberra clubs, but don't rely on me if you're going up to the warehouse. Check with the warehouse manager, and I'll give the details to us afterwards. That's equipment they're looking for. The other aspect of it is that the way we send containers is it's a project that clubs undertake. They've identified a need overseas, and then they the combination of collecting their own equipment and also equipment from the warehouse, they pack the containers and then send them to a project overseas. It's usually a Rotary Club overseas, which is responsible for clearing the container from customs overseas and then getting it to the site, and then arranging for the equipment to be given to the private hospital or schools. So that's donations in kind or equipment. The next area is project volunteers, which, as I said, used to be known as FAME, and there are something like, there's a list of something like over 400 projects that are listed on the National RAWKS website, and these are continually being updated as projects are completed and new projects come online. Again, I'll give Ross the details of that web address for projects. So if you're looking for a project that's looking for volunteers, go online. This district currently has 13 projects listed. The region, which basically is New South Wales, something like 150 projects. So New South Wales is basically sponsoring something like a third of the projects, just under a third of the projects that RAWKS has. The way the projects are set up, normally by a club overseas identifying a need and then working with a club in Australia to get the project listed, and then the club in Australia encourages volunteers, not only from their own club but also other clubs or other members who are interested in getting involved in the project. I've been on a number. The last project I went on was, in fact, one to Vanuatu, which was being organised by the Rotary Club of Winston Hills. They were looking for additional volunteers, and so I joined that and had a really good time. It's good working with other Rotarians, and also when you're involved in a project, you're working with the local people. The idea of the projects is, number one, is a training, providing skills, but also ending up with a worthwhile project. Projects started originally as building projects, but they're now being extended to include optical teams, dental teams, medical teams, and so on, so that and the idea is they work with the local skill and develop their skills further. The final area is project funding, and that is largely for projects that are looking for, the projects have been established by overseas clubs, but they're looking for funds to help develop what they're doing. Water tank projects are, there's one that falls into this area, but there are a number of other areas. The projects that I mentioned on the website are listed, and they identify whether they're looking for volunteers or for funding or a combination of both. But that's the other area. There's a new area which has recently been established, which is for projects in Australia. Originally, projects could be listed, 4 projects in Australia could be listed as RAWKS projects, but they didn't attract the benefit of tax deductibility for anyone who's donating to the projects. But now there's we sought approval for and gained approval to register projects as under the RABS, or Rotary Australia Benevolent Society, and there are something like 15 projects that are currently listed as RABS projects. But they have very tight criteria. Must be direct aid for those projects, direct benefit for the recipients of those projects. This one, perhaps I'll throw it into questions if you like to ask questions, and so I can cover areas that may be of interest to you. Okay.
Yep, it's all unmuted, guys.
So
off you go.
Open that up.
Yep, it's all open.
Yep.
Brian, I might start, if you like. Bruce Harvey here.
Yes, Bruce.
As we've recently
Yes.
discussed, we've been
Yes.
talking about the Dream Cricket, which we
Yes.
submitted as a potential project, but the decision was that it didn't fit the criteria. Perhaps could you outline for the members why that decision or the background of that decision?
Yes. What happened was I was talking to Bruce earlier this week, and he asked about whether this would be a project worth considering. So I said, before filling in the form, I'll refer it to the project coordinator for the RAWKS, the British Australia Benefit Society, to find out whether they would consider it. And he said it didn't meet the criteria of direct relief to a person in need. And so, in fact, that was Lloyd Chatfield, who's the Eastern Region Coordinator, and he referred that to the national level, and they also confirmed that, as far as they were concerned, that unfortunately didn't meet the criteria. He made a comment that if there were particular individuals who were directly benefited, rather than just sort of general funds for the project, that they might be prepared to give it consideration, but just as a general program, they unfortunately weren't prepared to accept that.
Right. So if, for instance, we identified somebody out of that program who perhaps had the potential to become an Olympian disability or a so on, and that person was identified, would that start to meet the criteria a bit more closely?
We've got a management meeting up in Sydney this weekend, and Lloyd Chatfield will probably be there. So I'll talk to him and see if I can get a better understanding of what is included in the criteria and what isn't. For the RAWKS program.
Yeah, disability is listed as one of the areas of of application for the
It is indeed, yeah. And it was the term direct relief that they had concern about. So I'll certainly take that up with Lloyd.
Yeah, well, it might be worth for next year. Perhaps might recast the bid or the application in a slightly different form, rather than being for general across the board. We might identify specific individuals, perhaps. Okay, thanks, Brian.
I'll certainly do that.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'll talk to Lloyd at the weekend and get a better understanding myself. As I mentioned earlier, this is a relatively new program. It's only been going about 18 months.
Right.
Brian,
it's good to...
It's David Fox, Brian. One of the things you mentioned, and I don't think a lot of Rotarians understand it, and that's the sort of the goods that you take, up to the warehouse. I found it fascinating when we were trying to equip, the Aboriginal communities, and we got some wheelchairs through you, quite remarkably, and they went up there for a lot of the older women because they didn't have wheelchairs. Would you just describe that to some of the newer members of the club, how it works and what we do with it?
A lot of the equipment, basically what I'm looking out for all the time is equipment that will be useful overseas. Wheelchairs certainly comes under that category. Hospital beds, we tended to be a bit inundated with those, largely because of Australian occupational health and safety regulations meant that a lot of nursing homes and hospitals had to replace their beds with the electric beds, and so there's been a large surface of mechanical beds, the wind-up beds and so on, that they've been getting rid of. And so, but we've sent a lot of beds over the years overseas to hospitals and senior institutions. There's our wheelchairs, walking frames. I mentioned I've picked up quite a number of crutches from Calvary Hospital, and what happens is they're taken up to the warehouse in Minchinbury, and then clubs who've identified a need overseas will pack in a container and get it shipped to the overseas country. I recently got a whole lot of desks from the ANU. They were re-equipping their examination room, and those desks were no longer required. So I took them up to the warehouse, and then they were shipped to two of these different schools in Vanuatu. And
okay.
this was the Winston Hills Club, and they sent the container with desks and other equipment they've sourced from elsewhere in the container, and then shipped that out to the club in Santo, and they were responsible for distributing the equipment to a number of different schools. And they've also got a physically handicapped school there. A number of items for that as well.
Brian, this is Jeff McLean. How are you?
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Good. Look, just again for the sake of some of the newer members, did you get involved with or know about Operation Uplift?
No, I don't. That's something I can.
Well, it was planned to go through RAWKS, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But I think some of the not so much the resources, but I think that RAWKS helped out a little. It was the supply of brassiers to women in the Pacific, in particular, and it was, well, in some ways, I think it was great. He had a home or a garage full of boxes of bras. So did I, and in the end, we had nowhere to send them. But that was, well, to my way of thinking, it was still a terrific project. But there was one interesting aspect of it that, even though it wasn't an official Rotary project, Rotary got quite a bit of publicity out of it. And one of the major problems was that some people objected to the project because it was affecting manufacturing in places like Fiji and this sort of thing. Has there ever been any other problems like that?
One of the projects, I wouldn't say there's a problem, but the optical project, over the years we've collected a lot of glasses, spectacles, but more recently countries can get those glasses very cheaply directly from China, and it's been proved to be more cost effective to get buy directly from China rather than to collect them and sort them and send them overseas. So I'm still taking glasses when I'm offered them, but I'm not promoting that as a project.
I think there's a couple of Berrima district that are still involved. I just can't think of his name. He is actually an optometrist, and I think he winds up in places like Mongolia, and I think he takes glasses with him. So that might be an outlet for you.
Thank you. Yep. Yes. As I say, I'm still getting a few, and I'm not looking them back, but I'm not promoting it as a project. So as time moves on, the need for different projects and so on does change. If you've got no other questions, one other thing I might like to demonstrate is a project, and that's to I don't know whether you can see this. These are some lights that we are actually sourced from China that we're sending overseas to different projects to allow school children villagers to do their homework once it gets dark. So they're lights which you turn them over and leave them out in the sun, and so the solar cells charge during the daytime, and then at night these are actually unclipped, so they're and they can be used at night, and they last for about 6 or 8 hours in the evening, and then they've got 3 ways, so you can have, when they're off they look a bit like that, and then when click once and you get half the LEDs coming on, or 6 LEDs, and then the second option will be then there's a ring of 12 LEDs that come on, and they give a fair amount of light, so that villagers can use them in their huts and so on to cook by, or to do their homework by. They're a lot safer than using the kerosene lights. Kerosene lights have the disadvantage that there's a cost of buying the kerosene, and there's also the danger that if they get knocked over, they can start a fire. So this is one of the projects that was recently undertaken to distribute those to some of the communities which don't have electric light. If anyone else has a question, I'll take one more question, otherwise I'll come back to Ross. Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to talk about my favourite subject, RAWKS. Trust. There you go. Thank you very much.
Where's mine?
Hi. Yeah, that's great. RAWKS is a great project, and I just hope that Dream Cricket, they see the that in fact it can get up as one of the RABs. Bruce, because no doubt you were interested in why they rejected it. I get the taxation department is very stringent, I know on that, and it's good to have it right, or correct right from the start, which would be really good. I thought originally I was going to ask Brian to leave, but I would like him to stay while we go through the rest, so that he knows how we go and what we're talking about.
Yep.
The first thing I want to just mention is the district conference is on from the 14th to the 16th of November at the end of the year, of course, and it's going to be with District 9675 combined, and that's all going to be at the convention centre. I'm not too sure what it's going to cost, because at this stage they're asking for a $100 expression of interest money commitment. Apparently, I haven't gone online to do it, but I heard someone today talk about that. So I think they need to get their act together a bit before we commit ourselves to going. From our perspective as a club, Dream Cricket's performing or looming large for next week. So Bruce, could you talk to us, please?
Sure, Ross. I guess first thing to report is that things have turned around quite a lot in the last week or so. We now have got, I think, a total of 8 school clinics now running over the first 3 days, and we've got 81 firm acceptances for the Dream Cricket Day, and I'm expecting about possibly another 10 to 15 in the next couple of days. So we've got the sort of numbers and whatever that are going to make it very viable. I've put into Dropbox just before the meeting a list, or three documents. One is the list of schools that are participating as clinics and when they're on and what schools are involved for the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. I've put a list of the schools participating in the Dream Cricket Day on the Thursday, and the sort of numbers that are coming from each of those schools. And the third thing I've put in is an updated version of the roster schedule for what we need in terms of assistance on the day, on the Dream Cricket Day, and also for some of the clinics as well. We have had offers from a number of other clubs. We've had two, and I'll put this on Dropbox tomorrow morning because I'm just finalising some of the things, but Canberra North, for instance, have offered to donate 2 kits to 2 schools. Burley Griffin have offered to donate a kit. Ginninderra have offered a donation of $200 to provide the medallions, and we give the kids hats and so on the day. And there was one other club too that had donated $200 that I just, without looking at the list, it's off the top of my head. I don't know whether you've heard anything back from Bob Greeny at all, Ross. I haven't heard anything. Whether Belconnen have
No,
contributed.
I haven't heard anything from Belconnen. However, I'll fire off an email again tonight. I know he certainly asked,
Yeah.
So we'll see what transpires there.
Okay.